Hi, welcome to this week's Authors Love Readers podcast, where we delve into the stories behind the stories. We're asking authors questions, some of them fun, some of them serious, and from their answers, you're going to learn things you never knew about the people who write the stories you love. My name is Patricia McLinn. I'm your host and designated question asker.
Hi, I'm Barbara McMahon, an author who loves readers.
Now, let's start the show. Welcome to another edition of Authors Love Readers, and this time I am delighted to have Barbara McMahon here. Barbara McMahon is one of my great writing buddies. We met, I don't know what year it was, but it was the Romance Writers of America National Conference in Hawaii. The last time they have had the conference in Hawaii. I don't think they ever will again because it was a fairly small group, which I thought was wonderful. And Barbara and I sat next to each other, McLinn and McMahon, at the literacy signing that they always have, and it's usually at the beginning of the conference. And Barbara thought I was funny. So forevermore, we have been friends.
And I still think you're funny.
Yay! Yay! And Barbara has written how many romances?
87?
Oh my gosh. She wrote for Harlequin and Silhouette, writing for Harlequin romance, right?
Correct.
And who else? Tell us all the ones you wrote for.
So I also wrote for Silhouette Desire, for Silhouette Special Editions, and for Harlequin Super Romance.
Yes, all sorts of books. And now she is an independent author. She has the rights back to some of those past books, and she is also writing new romances.
That's right.
We're going to start with some quick questions here just to let people get started to know you.
Okay.
I'm going to say, what is your favorite taste? And I do mean food, although it'd be interesting. She asked me, do I mean food or do I mean clothing? So now I want to know both.
Oh, okay. So I guess my favorite is pizza, followed by dark chocolate. I don't have I don't have an ethnic one like Italian or Tex-Mex or something like that. But my favorite food is pizza, and I love dark chocolate. And then in clothes, I go for really casual Western attire.
Do you have cowboy boots?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay. What is your favorite color?
Blue, dark blue. I have 9 dark blue T-shirts. I can go weeks without ever wearing another color.
Well, how did that start?
I have no idea. I have always liked blue, and I like all the shades, but I really like navy. And so, anytime I go somewhere and there are navy blue T-shirts on sale, I buy them. And then I realized the other day, because I do laundry once a week, that, oh my gosh, how long could I go with 9 shirts and never wear another color? And probably infinitely.
My next question is, what surprising jobs you've held?
One you may not know about is I was a guide for blind skiers.
I didn't know that.
Yep, I had to go through training.
When did you do that?
It was several years ago. Actually, shortly after I had done several, I fell and injured my knee, and I haven't been able to go skiing again. But I did it for one season, and it was a lot of fun. And mostly I had kids, teenagers, that were blind, and special programs would bring them up to the snow, and then our group would guide them.
So you should tell people where you live in general.
Oh, I live in the Sierra Nevada mountains of California, not too far from Lake Tahoe.
Mm-hmm. So she has lots of opportunities to have the snow to ski.
Absolutely, have home.
That's cool.
Snow at home too.
So I have to ask you a related question to get the answer I want.
Okay.
What other day jobs have you held?
I was a flight attendant during the Vietnam War, and then I ended up being a vice president of a software development firm before I quit to write full time.
And did you want to do those jobs? I mean, did you always want to be a writer and you were doing those other jobs to support yourself, or were those the jobs you had hoped to have and then you went, nah?
No, I actually have been writing since I was a teenager, and we had a, quote, literary magazine at my high school, and I used to write for that. And then a friend of mine and I would spend our summers writing these mysteries and things like that. But I didn't think of being a professional writer what I really wanted to do was work in the Foreign Service. Then I did a stint as a flight attendant and got to fly all around the world, which I loved, and that was my goal. Then I ended up getting married, and my then husband did not want to be a person attached to a foreign person, in a foreign embassy or something like that. His job was in the Bay Area, so we stayed here, and I gave up that dream. And then I just worked, but wrote on the side. And then after I had published several books, I thought, well, I'm just going to quit this other job and write full time.
Good for you.
It's been fun.
Good for you. So when was your first book? Published?
1982.
And when did you go full time?
It must have been 1992. So for 10 years, I wrote on weekends and sometimes in the evening.
Do you have a strong fear? And if so, do you use it in books?
I mean, I don't like spiders, but I don't use them in my book. I guess I could, but it's like, don't tell people that. I'm kidding.
Barbara is very sane. No fears, no phobias. I was sort of hoping there'd be a closet one that I hear about.
Yes, exactly.
That I could use against you.
Sorry to disappoint.
Okay. Do you have a saying that your mother or father used that you hear yourself saying now?
Because I said so. That's why.
And does it work any better than it worked on you?
No, not too really. And mostly I can only say it to my grandkids, and they are intimidated just a wee bit. But no, my daughters, they just laugh when I say it.
Okay. Most writers, now Barbara may be the exception here, have a bad habit word. A word that crops up, and hopefully we know about it and we go back and check for it, but it's showing up when it should not. I have said this over and over. Some of mine include just and really. Very will show up too. What's your bad habit word?
Two, I would say. One is just, like you were saying, and at the end of the book, I go back and search on just and eliminate them or change the word sometimes to merely, but mostly eliminate it because it's like, oh my gosh, I said it again. And the other bad habit I have, and it's not really a word, it's starting without a subject, just jumping in with the phrase that includes the verb and going forward. And then when you read back, it's like, well, that's very abrupt. So then I'll add an I or a he or a she or something like that.
Oh, that's interesting. I have a tendency to use the phrase, it was not, it was, which actually is harder to search for because it has the variable in the middle of it. So I get a lot of it was not that I wanted, but I can't find this other phrase without going through the it was not. So I have multiple bad habits. I have bad habit phrases.
Oh, I do too. One is the dark of midnight. And I had a reader who got a whole bunch of my books at one time, and then she wrote me and she said, I really enjoyed them, but do you know in every book you say in the dark of midnight? And it was like, oh no, do I? So I haven't since. I don't think I've used it once since that reader brought it to my attention. But apparently in 6 books I said it.
That's terrible, though, that now you're so conscious of it. So there's probably a spot where it'd be exactly perfect to use it, and you can't use it.
I would not let myself use it.
You told us that the phrase that your folks used and that you now use. How about, do you have a motivational or upbeat quote that you like?
The one I like best is, I can do all things through Christ Jesus who strengthens me. It's from Philippians, and it is one that I have used for many, many years. It gets me through everything.
That's a real foundation for you. Okay, what 3 movies would you take with you to this strange desert island that allows you to play movies?
Okay, let me see. You'll probably laugh at these. One I would take would be Where Eagles Dare, which was a Richard Burton, Clint Eastwood action flick. And another one I would,
World War II?
And the other one would be Kelly's Heroes, which was Clint Eastwood also in World War II. And then the other one I think I would take would be The Sound of Music.
Well, those are interesting. I was thinking the first 2, there's sort of a theme there of overcoming adversity. Certainly, all war can
big odds to overcome.
Interesting. And then why The Sound of Music?
I don't know. It's so upbeat and cheery. And of course, once you hear those songs, they resonate through your head for days afterwards. That would keep me company on the desert island.
So you would be off singing
That's right,
the songs.
dancing around like Julie Andrews did on the hillside. I know you can picture me doing that, even in jeans.
I can very much picture that. Okay, I'm going to ask you another kind of strange little question. If your writing were a color, what would it be?
Well, of course it would be blue.
Oh,
Blue is my happy
okay.
color, and I'm happy when I'm writing, so it would be blue. But it would probably be a light, smoky kind of blue, not navy.
Not navy. Yeah, I can see that. Okay. So where did your love of story come from?
I can't
Do you
remember.
know?
My mama told me I started reading when I was about 4, and I can't remember ever not reading. And I can remember as a kid, I had a bedtime. I'm not sure kids do these days, but I did. And so I would dutifully go to bed with a flashlight and a book. And as soon as they said goodnight and closed the door, I was under my covers reading.
Oh, yep.
So classic for that generation, don't you think?
I did that too, under the covers with the flashlight.
Yeah.
Like no adult could see through the
well, I actually
through the sheet.
I shared a room with my sister, and I was afraid the light would wake her up, so that's why I would go underneath. And and I'm sure you did it too. I'd be up so late, I'd be so tired the next day, but I couldn't tell anybody why.
Well, I don't think they expected anything of me except for being tired the next day, because I've long been a night owl, so I didn't have to explain. But the other thing I used to do, I'm the youngest by a bunch, so my older siblings and my parents would be downstairs, and I swear all the fun started when I got sent to bed. I'd be sent to bed, and all of a sudden there's all this laughter downstairs. So I would sneak down the first half of the stairway to where it opened up into the downstairs room, and I'd be there listening, and my mother would say, "Are you in bed?" And I would pound up the stairs and jump from the landing into the middle of the bed and then say, "Yes." Like she had no clue what I was doing. Yeah, but I don't think I was cut out to be a spy.
No, probably not.
Question from a reader.
Okay.
She says, "Where do your stories come from? I know one author who dreams her stories. Another has a character suddenly taking up residence in her head. So how are your beautiful stories born?" I love that she said the stories are beautiful.
I'll see something and it will spark my imagination. I came out of a grocery store one night, and in the handicap parking place was a pickup truck with this really cute cowboy sitting inside behind the wheel. And as I walked by, I saw a wheelchair in the back of the truck. And so right away I thought, that's got to be his, because whoever else was in the truck is no longer in the truck. So then I started thinking of an injured cowboy. How would that happen? Well, he was a rodeo cowboy. He got injured being bucked off the bull or something like that. And then it just developed into a whole story, which was One Stubborn Cowboy, one of my first desires. Another time I was at the Amador County Fair. I live in Amador County, and it's a rural county. It's big on cows and cowboys and things like that. And I was sitting down resting and eating an ice cream cone because we'd just been walking all over the fairgrounds. And this cowboy, of course, with 2 little girls, I mean, maybe 9 months each, one in each arm. They were big enough to sit up by themselves and look around and all, but they looked like they probably weren't walking much. And I thought, well, that's a great idea. What if there's a single dad with twins? So that was another book, Daddy and Daughters. Another one I got was from a Lacey J. Dalton song, which is country music. And I wrote a book from that. So I get ideas from everywhere, and then they just spark something in my mind.
Okay, so when you have that idea, then how do you actually start the book? How do you start writing? Do you do work with that idea? Do you outline? Do you take notes? Or do you just start writing? And do you start writing at the beginning? Or
the first couple of books
somewhere that's not the beginning?
Unlike you, my dear. Some books, I wrote 2 or 3 books back in the day when you had to write a whole book before they would buy it. At least Mills and Boon wouldn't buy it without the whole book. Then when I started going to contract with just proposals, they insisted on an outline. So then I'd outline the book, and then my editor would say, you never follow this outline, but it's okay because your books turn out okay. But they would insist on the outline every time. So in a way, I have a very vague outline of what's going to happen, but a lot of it just, as I'm typing, it'll say, oh, I have this scathingly brilliant idea. And then I add that to it. So, and then I have to go back and lead up to it. So I consider myself an outliner that's a pantster.
So you have to track back so you're writing sequentially, but then you have this scathingly brilliant idea and you have to go back and drop in hints and stuff to make it work from the beginning.
Exactly.
So you're sort of sequential, but you do jump.
Yeah. So does that make me a hybrid?
Yes.
I think so too.
And now that you are totally independent author, as am I, has that changed the way you write at all?
No, because the habit's in place after 80-some books. It's hard to change anything.
What's been the easiest book you've written? Can you think of one off the top of your out of the 87? It was just a joy to write.
It was The One Stubborn Cowboy. And I had a week's vacation, and it was during the time my kids were in school. I wrote solid for 1 week and got the first draft done. I have never before nor since done that. But that story just flowed like crazy.
Oh, that's wonderful.
But I wish I could do it again.
Yeah, I was just thinking I would love to recapture it. This is a question from a reader. When you finished a book, do you miss the characters? Do you think about them afterwards? And if you do, has that ever led to an additional book about characters?
It has. Yes, I miss the characters because I've been living with them for months. And, I write for a period of time in the morning, and then the rest of the day I'm thinking of what I'm going to write next or doing some research or something like that about the book. And so I've really lived with these people for months. And it's like a friend that visited and now is gone, and you miss them. And I've never done a sequel because of it, but I have gone back and added epilogues, just like, oh, well, let's just think down the road a bit and how would these people fare? And so that's sort of fun to go back and see, here we are 9 months later and they're still very happy.
That's cool that you add the epilogue because that's a good idea too.
Well, it's nice because then your book doesn't necessarily end with happy ever after and you wonder, is that true? And then it's fun to see them later and they really, the love has even blossomed more and they're just really happy and that makes me happy too.
Yeah, living the life that the books set up for them. I know you've heard me say this before. I often think of my books as not having happily ever afters at the end. They have happy beginnings because what the characters have gone through and learned in the course of the book has taken them from two people who couldn't have a committed relationship at the beginning to two people who could have a committed relationship at the end. And so the epilogue then gives you a glimpse into that beginning of their new life. Yeah. I like that. I may steal it.
I'm happy to share.
Wow, thank you. Do you have books that are unpublished or half finished that just never quite gelled but you've held on to them?
I have 3 historical ones that I wrote back when Rosemary Rogers and Catherine Woodowes were so popular. And I actually sent one of those off. And and I don't even remember what house it was then. This was like in the 1970s. And it came back with this 3-page critique. And I didn't know anything then. And I said, sadly, they don't like my book. Had I known then that an editor doesn't spend 3 pages of critiques if they're not interested in the book, my whole life could be different now. But I put it away. I put all 3 away, and no, I never did anything with them. And I don't know. I mean, I still have them, but they're typed. That was before computer.
Well, you could get those scanned in.
Yeah, I can.
What era were they? What historical era?
Revolutionary War.
Oh, interesting. My favorite. I really like that period.
I do too.
Which, of course, is the reason I wrote my historical in 1880s Wyoming.
Right.
Just spending all my life studying colonial and revolutionary.
Right.
the U.S., where I knew the research. No, I went to do the harder stuff. But I think there's a future there for you, Barbara. If this contemporary gig gives out, you got a
The
backup.
problem, I was a history major in college, and so I thought, well, I'd write about this because, I get to do all this research and all. And and I only tried with the one book. I had, in the meantime, had written the others, waiting for the response. And I thought, this takes forever to research, and if they're not going to buy it, I'm wasting my time. And that's how I went contemporary, because I thought, I know this time frame. I don't have to look up, how they dressed or what kind of conveyances they rode in or stuff like that. So, yeah, if this ever goes up, I might go back to it. Unlikely.
Well, let's talk a little more about research, because some people think, well, there's no research in contemporary because you're living the time, but I find there always is. Every book there's research. Do you like research? Do you do it all before? Do you have a routine that you follow with the research?
I do research, and one reason I like to write cowboy books, and like I said, I live in a rural county. I have a friend who actually owns a cattle ranch, and anytime I have questions, I ask her things. I did a book once about a wildfire, which are prevalent in California, as you well know. And so
Yes.
I called one of the local fire people, and he spent a long time telling me about the nature of fire and what to expect in the terrain I was describing for the book and things like that. And my biggest boon has been Google Maps and Google Earth, because it used to be, if I was writing for another location, I would go and get all the travel books I could get from AAA or from the library and read up on everything I could about the topography and the architecture and customs of that area and stuff like that. And now you can go online and actually walk the street practically that your heroine's going to walk, or ride the range. I did a long jump, which is what's called hot air balloons that go long distances. They're like contests and all. And so it was set in Spain. And so I took off from Barcelona, and in Google Earth, you can say how high up above the earth you go. So I went as high as hot air balloons go, and then just went in the direction the balloon would go, and I was able to describe all of what they would have seen.
Isn't that amazing?
I love Google Earth. So yeah, I guess I do research on almost every book, at least some facet of it, and it's easier when doing the Western ones because I've got friends that are in the cattle industry. But, I like to do other things too, and there'll be readers who aren't enamored with cowboys, and so I try to do rich guys and sexy guys and business tycoons and things like that too.
So, do you have a favorite type of character to write
about?
about?
I like cowboys.
There is something about them. When you're working on a book, do you have a certain routine that you follow?
Yes, I get up every morning and have breakfast, and then I sit down. Well, some people don't eat breakfast. So, and then I sit down and I work probably from maybe 8 or 8:30 in the morning until about 12:30. And then I go have lunch. And then in the afternoon, I do, any research I need to, or other things. I'm involved with other things. I'm a volunteer for different organizations. So I'll do stuff like that. And then the next morning, I'll get up and the same thing. And I listen to the same classical music I have for 20 some years, because it's like when I clamp on those headphones and that William Tell overture starts, I go into this zone and the time just flies by.
That's such a great piece of music too. I mean, I think we take it for granted because it's used for commercials and things like that. I love the pace of it, and I listen to a variety of music, but one of the pieces I listen to are theme songs from Errol Flynn movies, and I find the faster the music goes, the faster I type.
Me too.
When it's going da 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 da, I get a lot of words in. We're gonna have to put together a collection of fast-paced classical music for writers to be productive.
Oh, that would work. That would be really good.
So, what's your favorite part of the process, and what's the most difficult for you too?
My favorite part is starting. It's so hopeful, and it's building a picture of the character that I hope the reader sees as what I see. I have a picture in my mind, and I tried to describe them not just physically, but personality-wise as well, so that others will see what I'm envisioning in my head. And then the middles are hard sometimes. I know where I want to go, but it's like, how do I get there logically? I don't want something to feel contrived or too coincidental or something like that. So that part's probably the hardest for me. And then I sort of slow down at the end because I'm getting ready to say goodbye, and maybe I'm not ready to say goodbye to them yet. And I do slow down a little at the end.
So is the end your least favorite? No, you said the middle is kind of your least favorite.
Yeah, that's my least favorite.
Do you have tricks to get past that?
Yeah, sometimes I stop mid-book and try to brainstorm other ways to make it fresh and a bit different and unexpected. Sometimes I like to say, can I just make this unexpected and it go a different way? And so sometimes I do that. And then if I get the scathingly brilliant idea, then I can include that here. And then I have to go back, of course, and lead up to it.
Now you've written so many books, and you started 80s when, again, as I was. You started when you were a toddler, I'm sure.
Of course.
Of course. Having been a toddler flight attendant previously.
Yes. Yeah, I was probably...
Those little 3-year-olds walking down the aisle of the plane telling you to put your seatbelt on.
That's right. Oh, you've captured the scene perfectly.
So, but you've written these books and you've had a varied career and a very successful career. How do you think you've changed as a writer over the years? And have you had just one change, or can you see sort of the ages of Barbara McMahon as an author?
Well, I started out writing for Harlequin in their London office, and they're a bit more formal in their speech and sentence setup than Americans are. And so I do notice that if I go back and look at earlier books, they seem more almost literary rather than fast-paced and keep moving so you see what's happening to the characters. And my more recent books in the last 15 years or so maybe, I think are more suited to our lifestyle now. You've got some fast-paced things going on, and then you take a break, and that would be probably where someone would put the book down and go cook dinner or something, and then come back and pick it up again. So yeah, I definitely see a change to a degree, hopefully not too much, but to a degree in that. And since I've gone independent, one of the things that Harlequin harps on, bless her sweetheart, is making it very generic because it's going to be sold to, a gazillion foreign countries and in foreign languages and this like that. So it needs to be very generic. And I feel I can really write more to the American market now that I'm an independently published author, so that it's a lot more like the lifestyle I lead.
And more specific, yeah.
More specific to the United States.
Yeah, well, and more specific to the character, I think, often because the character is in the United States. But I used to have those discussions with some of my 32 editors that I had for.
Oh my gosh, 32! Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah. And they would want things that could apply to anybody. And my point was, but this character isn't anybody, it's this specific person. So yeah, we were never a great, I was never a great fit there. So the publisher and I were never a great fit, but those days are past. Now we're indies.
And I love the freedom now. I mean, I feel like I can write as fast as I want or as slow as I want. I can write what I want and not write to the market, so to speak. Just write what makes me happy and hope it makes people who read it happy.
That's interesting because you've been published always in romance?
Yes, always in romance.
What things do you believe that people think about the romance genre and are sure they know that just isn't so? In other words, what misconceptions do people have about it?
I think if people are not already reading romances, they think they're fluff. And I was on a nonprofit committee with another woman, and it came up when I did that I read romance. I never read those. I read mysteries, and I'm thinking they're genre fiction too. So I think the perception is they're not as in depth maybe. And yet they, more than anything, have a universal appeal because you're going for the emotions. I mean, what's better than falling in love? But also you can connect into sadness sometimes, or anger, or envy. I mean, you can go through all the emotions that everybody feels, and that's why some people do so well in other countries, because it doesn't matter too much about the situation. They're touching into those universal feelings that we all have, and I think it's enriching to find out how some people deal with those, even if it is fiction.
How do you feel when you're writing about characters who are sad? Do you find that affects you?
Oh yeah, I'll be sad, and I still have some books that if I go back and reread them, I start crying, and I wrote the stupid things. So it's like, what in the world? But hopefully the sadness of that situation comes across, and I'm not sure that every book's an emotional roller coaster, but I think if you have different emotions surface, it makes it a more enriching read rather than just straight through. So I do try to get just a little bit of different stuff with the overlying emotion being falling in love.
You know, you mentioned emotional roller coaster, and my mind immediately went to every book is an emotional roller coaster for me as I'm writing it.
Oh.
A lot of ups and downs, a lot of scary turns. So when you're writing, I know you're a little more even keel, but do you celebrate beginning a book or ending a book or having it be published?
Sad to say, I no longer do. But in the early days, every time I'd get a new contract, my husband would take me out to dinner and we'd celebrate. And then when I'd finish a book, we'd go out to dinner and celebrate. And then after a while, it became like, okay, they bought another book, but I'm busy. I can't go out to dinner. And that we just, after a while, it's like, okay, well, this is your life. This is not an extraordinary thing anymore. I'm blessed to be able to write this long, but in my own lifestyle now, it's not an extraordinary thing. So no, we don't celebrate as much as we used to.
Well, that's an interesting point though about this is your life, and I think sometimes people meeting writers think we have these very different lives from other people, and I will often post on Facebook or Twitter about taking leaves out of the gutter. Oh yes, the glamorous author life, But do you think that writers view the world differently from other people or approach things different? Are we different, I guess?
Yes, I think we're different. When I have spoken to groups, they always ask, where do you get your ideas? Always. I have yet to meet another writer who asks me that. And I think the difference is we have more ideas in our head than we will ever live long enough to write. And people who are not writers don't. And so, yeah, I think that makes us different. It was a gift that we were given, then other people were given other gifts to do in their lives. And that was the gift given to us. And, I love to, if we go to Disneyland, I'll sit out with the grandkids so I can watch people walk by. I like that kind of stuff. If I'm riding on the train, I eavesdrop on the people talking just to hear, what they're talking about, how they're saying things, try to guess what might come next, that kind of analytical kind of stuff maybe. And my non-writing friends don't do that. So yeah, I do believe we see the world differently.
Yeah, Barb, I've said this on some other talks that I'm an eavesdropper, and when I go to a restaurant with other authors, sometimes there's this sort of scramble to get in the best spot to either eavesdrop or watch the whole room, or the super duper, the daily double is to have a place where you can do both. And Barbara is one of the authors that I wrestle with who's going to sit in the best spot. So we try to get to the good chair first. And you can tell there'll be a group of authors at a meal, and we tend, because we spend a lot of time alone, when we do get together, there's a lot of talking, and then all of a sudden there'll be this lull, and there's a good conversation going on at a nearby table, and everybody's mentally taking notes. So, okay, here's a question from a reader. You actually answered kind of one reader's question about where your stories come from. So we've covered that. But what is your favorite place to write? Does it have an inspirational view? And why is that your favorite spot to write in?
My computer is set up by a window. I live in the Sierra Nevada mountains, so when I look out, all I see is trees. And to me, that is peaceful and serene and tranquil, and I really like it. Sometimes in the fall, some of the needles, not all of them, but some of them fall, especially from the fir trees, and they're gold. They turn gold, and so if they're falling in the sunshine, it's just like golden snow almost falling down. Of course, then we have to blow the driveway because they make a terrible mess. But yes.
The glamorous life of a writer, right?
Exactly. But while they're falling, they're gorgeous. And, I got my desk by the window, and I just go there every day. And again, you slip in front of the computer, you put on the earphones with the same old music I've been listening to for decades, and you just zone out and write. And I have tried taking my laptop out on my deck. I'd have even a wider view, but no, it doesn't work.
Oh, really? You can't work out on the deck?
And I'm sure some of it, and maybe it would work, because now I'm thinking about it. I have, when we've had a power outage or something up here for a long duration, I have gone to the library and been able to work there. But I also take my TV with me and listen to it while I'm working.
Yeah, I do think that maybe authors in particular are trainable like Pavlov's dogs, that we get certain cues. And if we're smart, we create those cues so that we can get back into the writing mode.
I absolutely agree. I mean, I just consider that my training over, I've been doing this for 30 some years, and that's what works. And I do often say I'm like Pavlov's dog. I put the earphones on. I can't hear the phone. Don't answer the phone. My husband knows not to come up and talk to me when I've got earphones on. And then between writing books, I do editing, of course, before I'm ready to release it. And I don't listen to the music then. And so it's a different mindset and a different way of working. And then when I'm ready to start creating again, I go back into the same mode.
Yeah, I find when I'm editing, even if I'm listening to the words, at least in my head from when they're on the page. When I'm writing, I'm listening to the voices in my head.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So do your books tend to, once you start, you have the idea, well, you've said you'll have scathingly brilliant ideas during. So do they tend to change a lot from the start, from your conception to what they end up as?
They don't change a lot, but often the ending will be different. And and it's like, this is what I envision right now today. And as I get into the stories and develop the characters and come up with these other things to make them distinctive, and it says, oh, well, he really wouldn't do that kind of thing. And so then I'll slightly change it, which then ripples through and goes all the way to the end. So the basic concept is there from start to finish. But yeah, I will often have the different ending than originally anticipated. I say it used to drive my editor nuts, but she knew she never asked me to go back and change it like I had it on the outline. And now I don't have to answer to anybody but me. And so I can make the change whenever I want.
I don't know if the listeners can get the visual of when you're saying you don't have to answer to anybody but you. And probably on both ends of this call, there are authors going, da-da-da-da-da, dancing around the room. Don't have to answer to anybody else. Following up on the stories, whether they change from conception to publication, have you had any that really surprised you?
No, I don't think so.
No?
I don't know what you mean by really surprised me.
So it sounds like you have a pretty good grasp on what the story is at the beginning. Some of us don't.
Oh, yes. I've heard about writers like that. I can't fathom.
And you love us.
I do, but I can't fathom how that works. I'm very lineal. I start at the beginning and go to the end. The road there might veer slightly and have a different ending, but it's still pretty beginning to end.
Okay. I love you despite that. So we'll forgive you. Here's a question from a reader that will, I think, take you back to your traditionally published days. When the cover image doesn't match the character description, a pet peeve of mine, says this reader, how does it feel?
Oh my gosh, I hated it. We had to, as when I worked for another publisher, all of those that I worked for, we had these elaborate fill out the cover detail sheets. I mean, they were pages long, and they asked, what color are their eyes? Who cares? You can't see the eyes anyway. And they'd ask you the hair color, and what do they look like, and what are they wearing, and where is this set?
Jewelry
And
they
then
wore.
totally something totally different, and you think, what in the world is that? And it wouldn't match anything. And it's like I spent hours doing this form of you had that was several pages long, and it's like, well, put that one aside and let's go with this one. And yeah, it used to drive me to a pet peeve. Yeah, I think so. Was I too strong?
Gee,
Oh my gosh, that just used to drive me nuts.
It does. It is a crazy
Oh,
maker.
and I have to tell you this one. I did this one story, and I had the guy be blonde, and the hair came back on the cover looking like Play-Doh, like yellow Play-Doh. And I never have had a blonde hero ever since. I said, if this is what they do with blonde, they're dark from now on.
But now I got to challenge you to have a blonde hero now that you're an independent and see what you come up with. I bet you come up with something that is not Play-Doh. For readers who might be new to you, what are a couple books that you would say would be a good place to start reading you?
I don't know. I have 87 favorites. So narrowing down all these children to one or two is really hard. But maybe one that I was really fond of was The Rancher's Bride. And it was a modern day marriage of convenience story for older people. He already had a grown son. And I have like two stories going in it. The hero's love affair and then his son's love affair. I liked that one a lot. And then another one that I liked a lot was Angel of Smoky Hollow. And it was a burnt out violinist from New York Philharmonic goes down to Kentucky, of all places, and learns to play bluegrass. And there's more to the story than that. Cool. But I thought that was a nice story.
Well, and those are good stories for new readers to be introduced to your works. That's great. How about even with your most loyal readers, and I know you have a lot of really loyal readers, there must be a book or two that maybe you think has been overlooked a little bit, that isn't as well known by your loyal readership as others. Do you have those hidden gems?
Actually, none come to mind. Pretty much they all seem to sell, within a range of each other. I haven't had any that nobody's ever read or never has gone anywhere.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll leave that question open if any of your readers have books they want to nominate and say are one of Barbara's hidden gems
that would be cool.
that they don't think has gotten as much attention as the stories deserve.
That would be really interesting to see. I like that idea.
What's coming up? What's your most recent release? Let's start with that.
I had a novella out in December called The Cowboy Special Christmas. And a year ago, I did a Soldier's Christmas. And I'm trying to start a new deal of every year have a novella out at Christmas. And so I've got two down and hopefully quite a few more to go. And then...
and will you do it like a different occupation?
Yes, I've already thought of the one for 2018. He's going to be a Doctors Without Borders. So it'll be the Doctor's Christmas or the Doctor's Hometown Christmas, something that'll have Christmas and Doctor in it for the title. I don't have the title yet, but I've already got the idea for the hero for that one. And then I did a series of Christian inspirational books called Rocky Point, Maine. And I have the latest one of that one that's due out in the spring called Rocky Point Inn. And it's about an innkeeper, and she's watching, her best friend died, and she's watching her daughter until the best friend's estranged brother shows up to claim the daughter. And you can imagine if the sister and brother were estranged, how close that family wasn't.
Yeah. And when will that
Probably be out? April, but maybe as late as May.
And Are you working on something else for past that? Do you have something else in
Yes,
mind?
I have a cowboy series, Cowboys again. Um,
Uh-huh.
One is the reluctant cowboy, one is the cynical cowboy, things like that. It's an 8-book series of brothers and cousins that live on or around this ranch in Wyoming. I'm going to Wyoming too. I love Wyoming. I love your book set in Wyoming.
When are you going to Wyoming?
Gosh, I haven't been there in years. I need to go again.
Oh, okay. Yes. Oh, you meant you were going to Wyoming in your
In
books.
my
I thought you
books,
were going.
yes. No,
Yeah. It's great.
no. One of my favorite states.
And where is your ranch set? Where in Wyoming is it?
Near South Pass?
Okay. That's an area I have not been in very much. I actually haven't been in at all.
Mm.
I've been, so I still have much more of the state to explore. Road trip.
I know. Isn't that fun? And I haven't been there in a while. We
Yes,
should go back. I should talk my husband into going back.
it would be a lot of fun.
It would be.
Okay. And so tell readers where they can find out more about you and about your books.
Okay, I do have a website, BarbaraMcMahon.com. And I have books on all platforms from Amazon to Google to Kobo, Apple, Nook, all of those. And I have a reader's list. If they want to sign up, they can go to my website and there's a sign up place there, and I'll send you information when new books are coming out.
That's great. Is there anything, this is my favorite journalism question, is there anything I haven't asked you that I should have?
Oh my gosh, I don't think so.
Okay, then we're going to go to the rapid fire epilogue questions. You have to pick one or the other.
Okay,
And we'll start with appetizer or dessert?
dessert.
Binge watch or make the watching last as long as possible?
Make the watching last as long as possible.
Oh, you drag it out, do you? Okay. Cake or ice cream?
If it's chocolate, cake.
Day or night?
Day.
Toenail polish or bare toenails?
Bare toenails.
Dog or cat?
Dog.
Tea or coffee?
Tea.
Now that was a tough one for you,
Well, I like lattes, but they're mostly milk.
Cruise or backpacking?
Backpacking.
Sailboat or motorboat?
Motorboat.
Which is eerier to you, an owl hooting or coyotes howling?
I guess the owl.
Mustard or ketchup?
Mustard.
Best china or paper plates?
Paper plates.
Save the best for last or grab the best first?
Save the best for last, especially if it's dessert.
On that note, we will wrap up. I will say thank you so much to Barbara for joining us this week. Hope you all have a great week of reading, and we'll come back to Authors Love Readers next week. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
That's the show for this week. Hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for joining Authors Love Readers podcast. Remember, you can always find out more about our guest authors in the show notes, and you can find out more about me at www.patriciamclinn.com. You can also send in questions to be asked of future authors at podcast@authorslovereaders.com. Until next week, wishing you lots of happy reading. Bye.